Okay, so I let cinema render for about half an hour just to make a quick preview of 1 second of animation, and the result is this. And as you see, everything is working quite well. The camera is rotating, the noise is evolving, and the lines are kind of following this noise evolution. So it's quite. I'm quite happy with the result. The noise effect is quite cool. You see some parts like this are kind of cool. You see like a sea evolving or something like this. The effect is quite cool. Also, the noise is nice. However, it tends to flicker a bit to have some strange artifacts, but we'll fix that in After Effects, I think. So I won't matter for the moment for this. So and lastly, for the timing of the noise animation, maybe it's a bit too speed too quick. I would have to. I'm not gonna do it, but what we could do is go back to cinema and re-export the noise sequence, and after that the line sequence, but with a lower speed, so it's a bit less visible when the animation takes place. But I think it's good like this. It can go. I can go with this. So. Uh, so yeah, I won't change it. So now we want to add to throw a bit more of graphical elements on this map. So for this, I'm quite happy with the spots of the camera. This kind of river of canyon is cool. So I'm gonna play with it. Maybe drawing a line here with numbers or letters or words, something like this, and growing up the line until about here, and revealing other graphical elements here. So maybe I will just offset a bit the camera and the focus point, so we end up focusing here. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do right now. So for this, the we have to, in fact, if I open After Effects with the lines we've rendered, um, we're gonna add some graphical elements directly in this composition and re-render this one, and replace the old one in Cinema by the new one here we've exported from here. So the workflow is quite simple, and you just have to change in After Effects, re-render, and this will refresh automatically in if you render in the same folder. This will refresh automatically in your C4D scene. So this is kind of handy. But just one thing can be tricky is to know where your camera is pointing on this map, because as you see, we won't add graphical elements everywhere. We'll just focus we'll just have them where the camera is pointing. And at this point, I would say the better to know where we at in the C40 scene is to maybe jump back of the camera, and to have a better view of this, maybe disable the displacement and the bump, so that we can have a flat representation of the texture, of the line texture, and see where we are with the camera. So the camera is pointing roughly in the middle of the plane. So we know we're about in the middle, but we want to know what orientation we have, so we can place text in the in a good orientation in After Effects. So we have to understand where we are in pointing on the map. So if I just zoom a bit, we can see that there is this canyon here opening on this large area, and we have this kind of island here on the other way of the canyon. So if I go, maybe I can pause the render. If I go back in After Effects, we clearly see that the camera is pointing about here, is here, and pointing here. So we'll add elements just in this region here. So now I can go back here and enable again my bump and displacement. Just check if we're good. Go back in my main camera. Yeah, and maybe pick a focus more here, over here. So yeah, I'm going to create those new elements in After Effects, and maybe I'll change in the final my camera rotation so I can have a better reading of the graphical elements revealing, so I can follow them or follow the lines creating everything like that. Okay, so in After Effects I'm going to place some first elements and check in C40 if they are in a good position, if they're well placed. So before I add some new ones, just to be sure, so I can Control T and click on the composition and put a new number. For example, I will put 50, hit enter, and I will hit W on the keyboard so I can shift click so I can snap the number, the rotation of the number to 90 degrees, and I will place it around here. I think it's a good spot approximately, and what I can do now, just to check if it's well positioned, I can re-render this sequence. So I can Control M, go to my looseness and check JPEG sequence, and click here, and be sure I go to my old folder for the line, select the first image, and and click no, sorry, you have to erase those 0. Okay, and you can render it. Yeah, it will replace, and maybe render 1 or 2 frames. Yeah, so I can stop it, and if I just go and check in the folder, so it's my line solo export folder. Yeah, this one is not good, but yeah, I can see I have my number here, so I can now just go back in Cinema and check. So I can select this node, reload, just reload the sequence, and re-render. I already had a number here because I made a quick test without recording it, but yeah, the number is well placed, well positioned. So and it reloaded well the new sequence, so I can stop the render. Also, if you check like me with a single new element in your scene, just be sure to be on the first image in the timeline, on the zero image in the timeline, because we only rendered in the sequence 1 or 2 frames, the first ones. So if you're further away in the timeline, you won't be able to see the number. So be sure to be at zero for the moment. So it's okay, we have the good positioning, the good placement, so we can now add some new elements. So I can delete those elements in the render queue and go back in my line composition, and now I can add some new elements. So for example, I can add a line here running here, so you can pick up your pen tool and deselect everything and begin to draw a line. Ooh, where I am, I will redo it. Something like this. I will refine the curve later. Yeah, we'll take this road and oops, maybe adjust some of the points here. Okay, and maybe if you select this line layer and call it line, and if you hit U on the keyboard, you can go in the stroke, make it a round cap, so it's round at the beginning and the end, and maybe add some dashes to it. So by clicking the plus button here, and this will transform this line in dashes. And maybe you can animate this, so by the add button you click trim path, and adding a keyframe on the end stopwatch, I can go at the beginning, adding another one at 0, so 0 to 100. And if I solo this layer, you'll see that we have this line animating, but maybe it's too fast. So what I can do is offset this keyframe and maybe make it beginning as it's already constructed, half appearing. So maybe it's even too, let's say 80 for example, so that we just have the line running slowly. Maybe I want it to be nearer my number, so maybe at around 55 beginning here. I'm going to, let's say 65, no, 75. Okay, something like this. It can be even slower, but let's say we're good with this. Okay, so I can desolo my layers. We'll go to half resolution because it's a bit lagging. It's the scene is heavy with those line sequences, and maybe I want a new line. I control this line, and maybe I want a new line, but maybe more. Let's say 70. Yeah, creating more 60 inner lines in the pattern. So yeah, I can now select my lines and use the path to replace those points a bit better. Let's say we are okay with this. We won't even see this one, so I don't really care, but okay. Okay, so we have some first elements, and maybe I can even make the scale a bit smaller for this number, and we will add some numbers incrementing. It will be more interesting than a static number like this. So for this, you can make a new composition by hitting Control N, and I will make it 500 by 500 pixel. Length, I will do it 2 seconds because it's my final length, and I will call it number 01. I need to make new ones, and I will hit Control Y to make a new solid, make it home size. Okay, and hit number here, numbers, and double click. So it adds on the solid, and I will check for font. I will check for naval rope font, and I will put it black. Make it on transparency to see it, and I will make it bigger. Replace this center point to make it roughly on the center, and maybe I won't know the decimal and just a big number. Let's say this one. I will keyframe a stopwatch, so I hit U to see the stopwatch the keyframe I just created, and I will go at the end of the composition and just increment this number to, let's say, 300, so that when I preview it, you see the animation is running, and I can now go back in my line composition and throw this number here, W, shift rotate, and scale it down so that I can place it wherever I want. This kind of numbers will be like altitude or something like this of the mountain, let's say. So I can just duplicate this number 1 to a number 2, open it, and just change those values here. Maybe I will add some decimal here. Let's say 2, and I will just change it by 40. alpha, and at the end 40.50, something like this. Okay, so I can one more time go back in my line composition, duplicate this one, and just Alt, sorry, and drag this one to replace it by the new one we've just created. So it replaces on the same place, so the same position. So I have to offset this new one, and by this way we have two different number animation in the scene. So maybe this one I can scale it down a bit, so it's not the same scale, or maybe scale even smaller this one to a 50%. Okay, and I can just select everything, retract everything, and solo those ones, and just make a quick preview. Okay, so I know I have to take care of the position of this number, so I will disable snapping and just place those ones around my 50 here. And for this number, I will rather make a text. So let's say Geo Mountains, for example, and I will go at the beginning of the composition, and just to animate this text quickly, I can grab a machine animation preset, machine, as you see, and double click on my text, and if you select the text again, it's U on the keyboard, you'll see the machine effect creates for you two keyframes. Sadly, the second keyframe is out of the duration, so I hit Ctrl K on the keyboard, just make a longer composition, and just grab the second keyframe and put it around my 2 seconds length, so around here. Hit N on the keyboard and just trim comp again. So yeah, I have now my text animated. I can also, if I hit 2 times U, I can also in the animator values change the randomize order and check it on, so letters appears randomly. Okay, so that makes a bunch of small bunch of new layers. Okay, and at this time let's check. I will make a new render. So I Control M, go to my output module, it's JPEG sequence, go in here, select the first one, erase the last zeros, make enter, and render this by replacing. Okay, so in my project I went back and forth this way between Cinema and After Effects, adding slowly some more graphical, testing some graphical elements, and seeing if that that was working with the depth of field of my scene, with the placement of the camera, with the animation of the camera, so that you have to sync some lines appearing, or some text appearing, and the camera positioning at the same time. So you have to go a little back and forth this way, but it's the next part of the fun part of the scene construction in C40, so no problem. So I can stop, for example, now I rendered a few frames, I have this T and S showing, so let's keep that in mind. And so now if I go back in my C40, reopen this material, and in this slot maybe reload. So we are at frame 0, so just check. I think we'll have only the numbers and not at this time the T and S letters, but we should have the two numbers. Yeah. Also the line is here. So yeah, I think we are pretty good with this. So now we have to direct the camera movements and the graphical elements we really want in the final scene. So maybe I'll go for something, maybe I can save my project here and also save in After Effects at this time before doing anything else. So I will call it line 02 to have an incremental version of this After Effects line project. And so yeah, now I can begin to play with the camera and the elements. So maybe if I go to frame 4, let's say, let's check if we have the letters appearing. Yep, they're appearing, so we're good to go. So now we just have to define a final composition here. As we are seeing, it's working pretty well. So maybe I want to have some kind of cycles and things like that that can evolve. Maybe here, here, here on approximately those parts. So upper the 14 number on the left. So I can go back here, so this will be around here, let's say. So for this I can create new composition, let's say 800 by 800. Let's make it also 2 seconds long, and let's call it cycles cycles _01. Okay, so for this one I will double click on the ellipse tool. That will make a perfect cycle for us, and I can grab those elements and scale down the cycle, just make a stroke at around, let's say, 4 pixels. Okay, and same thing for this one. I can click the hat button in the layer, make it a trim pass, and animate, or not even animate. I won't animate this way. What I can do now is maybe make just a portion of the cycle and just animate the offsets by putting a simple expression on it. So I can alt click on the stopwatch here and just type in the offset time, multiply, let's say 30, and yeah, we have something rotating or evolving, turning. And maybe I want it a bit faster, and maybe I also want in my ellipse options in the stroke make it dashes with cap. Okay. Or maybe let's say let's keep the dashes. Let's duplicate this layer and double click, grab this point up. Sorry, double click, grab this point up here. Scale with Shift and Control so we don't break the scale. And maybe for this one, get a for this one get a straight line, a curve full line, let's say. And for this one, the dashes, and I can just hit W to quickly offset the rotation of those two ones. And maybe if I just, because they're rotating in the same sense, in the same direction, I can hit 2 times E on the keyboard to reveal the expression of one of them, and maybe just make it rotate the other way, so I minus the time multiplied by 50. So yeah, it rotates the other way round. So okay, and maybe this one, let's make it rotate a bit slower. Okay, and what could we add now? Let's keep it like this and just drop it in our composition. And let's adjust the scale also by clicking S on the keyboard. And maybe I put it around here. Maybe I can lower the opacity of this one, let's say to 60. Make it even smaller. Adjust this again. And maybe duplicate it and just offset this composition a bit so it's not in the same timing. And with W, rotate it. Scale it differently and place it something like this, or maybe on the align with this curve, something around here. Okay, just changing the values quickly. Okay, so I can save this one and go in cinema, and maybe not going in cinema right now, but just checking the animation in After Effects by soloing those elements. Okay, so you can add a bunch of those elements. Okay, so I'll make once again a quick render. So after refreshing the line sequencing in C40. I made a few adjustments because I was not totally happy with the lighting and the noise mostly, and I ended up with this look. So what I changed to get this look was, firstly, I changed a bit the noise. So if I go back to my node editor, what I did is I helped myself with the texture, and this texture is an RDT collection 1 texture. It's a sand bump texture, and it comes with all set of physically maps, physical maps, and PBR maps, let's say. And it's just the bump at 8K resolution. So in fact, I just disconnected one of my node here and replace it with this texture. And for this texture, I went a bit down with the power because it was too strong. If I just fire the render. So I gave the power half, I made the power half the way, so about 0.5. So we can have a better look here. So around 0.5. And also I changed a bit the settings of this group of nodes. So if you want to check them, I went for around 0.35 for the scale of the transform of the noise. Okay, and for the noise itself, I went for 9 octave, omega around 0.64, gamma 0.63, contrast around 3. And in fact, if you want to clearly see each one of the, so I can now delete this one. So if you want to have a look at each noise working separately, I can just plug the sand texture. So the sand texture gives me just a little bit of grain everywhere, almost everywhere. So it's nice, it's clean, it's small, and yeah, it works well. And this noise now, if you want to check only this one is only creating some patches of eroded texture, and so I just mix them together with the add node to have a blend of both of them. Okay, plus on top my little dots, which is quite invisible now, but still adds a bit of detail. So yeah, for the texture itself, that's how I finally did it. So as you see, the nodes are quite simple. You can push, for example, with adding normals and maybe put the material on a glossy material and mess with the roughness and the specular. But this will be surely cool, but this introduces some fireflies, and I don't want to deal with this for now, so I can stick with the diffuse material. So okay, and what else did I change to get this look? I also changed a bit my open sky environment. So here are the settings I ended up with, so you can just copy them. So for the power, I went for 0.3, rotation x 0.3, and rotation 1 y, sorry, minus 0.3 also, approximately. And I also, if you go in the texture itself, I also added a UV transform. So I clicked on UV transform, and this opens this slot, and I just play a little bit, just it's not very significant, but I just played a little bit with the scale of the texture itself. So yeah, that's what I did with the environment. And lastly, I just moved a bit the lights. So first I made the light a little smaller. So here are the settings for the size of the light. So it's about 34 centimeters x and 20 centimeters y. So outer radius about 17. And I also reposition the light, so it's a bit, it's more low, so it gives us longer shadows. So here are the settings for the position and rotation of the light. The light is always pointing towards the null I've created. So here, so for the lights and the transform position and rotation values, here are the final one. And also in the light tag, octane light tag, I cranked up the power to around 700. So if you just copy paste those or just copy those values, you'll settle with this kind of render and lighting. And yeah, as I said it, I also reloaded, refreshed my little After Effects example export for the lines and numbers. So you ended up with this image here. So I think the look is better, and yeah, I can still, for example, go for my lights, and if I want to lower more light, I can play with it a bit, but yeah, let's stay with this. And also maybe changed a bit my camera imager, so I can go in it if you want. So here are the final settings. So maybe I will decrease the vignette effect and I'll add it in post in After Effects. So maybe I'll do the render like this, and I can always tweak a bit the setting here. I want to avoid burn areas, so yeah, I think we're quite good to go. Okay, so of course you could push these designs even further and have a great animation here on the bottom of your terrain, and of course you can also add new elements in the C40 scene. So if you want to stick antennas or whatever, you can always do it. So now you have the scene, it's up to you to push it further or to stick to a simple and clean render like this kind of render. So yeah, and lastly, before exporting, I want to be sure that I can also place some elements in After Effects, so they can match the 3D and the camera movement. So to do this, I will use the good old technique of the camera compositing. So if I Control B here, I can go to my Save tab here, and when I will save it, I can enable the compositing project file here with the save, and this will save my camera for After Effects, and I will be able to place some elements in the 3D dimensions, so they can match the camera movement. So for this, I want to stick a few nulls on my scene to say to tell the After Effects file, let's say, give me some position of the null here, give me the position of the null here, and I will stick some elements in After Effects. So it's quite simple. You just add some nulls here. I will add one near my text here, for example, and just take care of not going up on the y-axis, otherwise it will not stick to the terrain. It will slide slowly. So be sure to be really on the bottom, on the terrain itself. Okay, so we can make one, and we'll have to add a Cinema 4D tag for this one. So it's an external compositing tag, and you don't have anything to do, just put the tag on it, and you can control drag and drop. It creates a new one, and this one I will replace it, for example, here at the beginning of this canyon, and I will create another one, and maybe place it around here. Okay, so for my render settings, finally, I can so Control B, and I will save this as a JPEG sequence, no alpha channel, no anything. I will create a new folder in my export folder, so I call it geo render. Okay, and as I said, I will first save the scene. I will be sure to go on the output module and render all frames. Okay, and I will go back to my save and say save After Effects file relative. I will tick everything. Yep, and I can save my file now. So geo tutorial 03. Okay, so I can save it here at the same in the same folder. So I can check if, yeah, it's here, point AEC, it's good for me. So I can save one more time and play the render now. I think we've got set up everything. Yeah, so maybe double check the render settings. Okay, we don't need no fancy multipass rendering or so. It's just a simple JPEG diffuse animation, let's say. So yeah, I will render this 50 frames and we'll see if it's working for us in After Effects.